Hello, welcome or welcome back. It's good to see you today. How are you? My name is Vix and this is my channel, Goddess of Gore, where I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. Today I want to tell you about all of the books I finished last week, which is, thank the gods, the last week of June. I really didn't choose wisely with my reads this month, I think, so I'm very happy it's over. Shall we just get on with the books then? So I finally finished the Baptism of Fire, the 5th Witcher book, and I have to say I'm getting a little with these. I think binging them every month is getting to me a little bit, but after July there is a month off. Maybe I would have done better reading them a little further apart. I don't know. What was this book about? So the Cliffhanger at the end of the Time of Contempt. Geralt finds himself wounded and is transported to the Brokilon forest by the enchantress Triss. With the Dryads keeping a watchful eye on him, he slowly begins to regain his strength. When he feels recovered enough, his plan is to rescue Ciri, who is believed to be in Nilfgaard. However, the truth is that Ciri has assumed the identity of a bandit named Falka, who is leading a bunch of merry outlaws, a bit like Robin Hood. She has gained immense popularity among the common people, and her fierce temper and exceptional swordsmanship have quickly become legendary. This book introduces a load of new characters, some of Andrzej's most remarkable creations so far. Among them are Milva, an archer who dwells in the forest, and Regis, a barber surgeon. Unlike the previous tales that have mostly featured Geralt on his own or with a single companion, this novel follows Geralt as he forms a fellowship or brotherhood with a bunch of diverse cast of characters. Initially reluctant to share his burden with others, Geralt eventually embraces camaraderie as the story reaches its end. The conversations and banter between the characters are so well written, as always. Particularly amusing are the exchanges between Geralt and his closest friend Dandelion, who couldn't be more dissimilar than him. Honestly, their conversations are always such a joy. So, while a war spreads across the world, mostly between the Nilfgaardians and everyone else, with numerous groups, kings and noble houses, I sometimes find myself a little lost about who is alliances with who, and quite frankly who the bad guys were. And this became the point that I switched off and I started not to care. The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien begins with the original fellowship disintegrating as Merry and Pippin are captured by orcs who mistakenly believe that they have the ring. Gimli, Legolas and Aragorn decide to pursue their hobbit friends, tracking them through fields and forests, while still wary on the lookout for orcs. And along the way they encounter the riders of Rohan. Meanwhile, Merry and Pippin are taken by another group of orcs, but they do manage to escape and find themselves in the company of Fangorn, a tree-like creature. This Fangorn leads them to the meeting of the Ents, who decide to wage war against the cruel, to them, orcs of Isengard, who are under the control of the corrupted wizard Saruman. Gandalf guides Aragorn's group to Doras, the Golden Hall of the King of Theoden, where they expose Saruman's spy, the nasty Wormtongue. They later confront Saruman at Isengard and are surprised to find Merry and Pippin there, who inform Gandalf about the Ents' desire to aid in the fight against Saruman. Then, in the second half of The Two Towers, the focus shifts to Frodo and Sam, who have got separated from the rest of the gang and are making their way still to Mordor to destroy the ring as per the original plan. They encounter Gollum, who they convince to guide them despite their distrust of him. The trio's journey through the treacherous terrain, facing hunger, cold and the pursuit of the Black Riders, of course. Along their way, they encounter Faramir, who initially distrusts them but eventually offers them support. Gollum leads Frodo and Sam to Cirith Ungol, a mountain inhabited by Shelob, a deadly spider. Frodo is paralysed by Shelob's sting, but Sam manages to kill the spider. However, the Orc gods take Frodo away, while Sam, believing Frodo to be dead, takes on the responsibility of carrying the ring alone. But when Sam wears the ring and overhears the gods discussing Shelob's preference for a live prey, leads him to realise that Frodo must still be alive. Sam blames himself for taking the ring, but soon discovers that he has actually saved it from Sauron. And then, as the Two Towers ends, Sam is heartbroken by his separation from Frodo as the guards enter Mordor and close the gates behind them. I did enjoy this book a little more. It is shorter and has got a lot more going on now the party has been split up and they're all trying to catch up with each other and whatnot. And I also have enjoyed the sass between Gandalf and Merry and Pippin. Gandalf is very tired of their crap and they do not give fucks and winds him up knowing he's about to explode. It's a rather funny dynamic, I have to say. And then the year of Gaiman choice for June, Anansi Boys. This is the story of Fat Charlie Nancy, a Florida-born young man but came over to London as a child and has lived there ever since. He is now an adult and preparing for his upcoming wedding when the topic of his father's invitation is brought up. It is while trying to get in touch with him through the only neighbour with a telephone that he finds out that his father has died back in Florida. The flamboyant Mr. Nancy, in whose shadow Fat Charlie has always lived, died in a slightly embarrassing manner by suffering a fatal heart attack while singing to a young woman on stage in a karaoke bar before falling from said stage and accidentally pulling the woman's top off. Fat Charlie takes time off from his job at a talent agency and travels to Florida for the funeral. During discussions about his father's estate by an elderly family friend named Mrs. Higgler, it is revealed the truth to Fat Charlie. His father was indeed the West African spider god Anansi, and the reason that Fat Charlie did not inherit any divine powers was because they were all passed down to his previously unknown about brother, who could be contacted by simply talking to a house spider. Charlie is sceptical and on his return to England largely forgets what Mrs. Higgler has told him until one night when he drunkenly whispers to a spider that it would be quite nice if his brother stopped by for a visit one day. The enigmatic and mischievous spider arrives unannounced and starts to upset the balance of Charlie's carefully constructed life, with the two having such opposite outlooks on life until Spider uncovers the sinister secrets of Charlie's boss, Graham Coates. This book was absolutely fantastic and I loved every single minute of it. I was hooked from the start to the finish. Some might say it had me in its web. And then the last book of the week was Road of Bones by Christopher Golden. What a book. So this is about two friends who are on a mission to make a documentary on the Kolyma Highway in the Siberian area known as the Road of Bones, where temperatures reach as low as minus 60 degrees. Teague is the cameraman and Prentice is there just merely protecting his investment of $8,000 that he has lent Teague to make the film, and then they're both going to sell it on at a kind of profit as a sort of assistant to Teague. They take turns driving and sharing the travelling load. Along the way they pick up a man called Caskill who will be their translator. Caskill has history in the area, which just happens to be the coldest place on earth that has a settlement, and promises to help interview the people in a town which has a local ghost legend that everyone promises will change the world's mind on ghosts. Teague used to work on ghost hunting shows and always wished he believed. No, he needs to believe, since his own backstory has a dead little sister who he was supposed to be watching the day she got lured into a van with a man with a puppy, and was found days later broken and burnt. His sister always promised that if she ever died, she would spend her entire afterlife haunting him. He'd never seen her, but wanted desperately to, so he could beg her forgiveness. So he really wanted to be haunted or know that ghosts were real. So when he worked in the ghost hunt shows, he asked one of the presenters if she really believes, and she said that 90% of what they did was absolute fake, but there was that 10%. That's what kept her up at night. So our guy took that and set out to make a film that proved the existence of ghosts. So we are now at the frozen village looking for Caskell's family, and the entire town is abandoned, like mid-meal. Front doors hanging open except for one little girl, his niece, who is in shock, hiding in a cupboard. Oh, I forgot that along the way they picked up a woman called Nari, who was in one of the bars they had stopped in before getting to that village. Her car had broken down and was starting to freeze to death, so they could only bundle her into the truck and keep her warm. Anyway, she's now been dragged into this film crew, as it were. She's now part of the team too, and she hears things coming from the forest that runs along the edge of the village. While the three men are looking in everyone's homes for signs of life, she's staring off into the forest, hearing whispers coming from the dark spaces between the trees, and then the trees are sort of parting and swaying in such a way that cannot possibly be wind. Human sounding whispers. She calls the others over to be sure she's not hallucinating, but no, they too hear the whispers and can see the trees moving as well. So they come into the house as Caskell is getting his niece Una bundled up to come with them too. Except as they are getting in the truck, Nari vanishes into the trees, only to come tearing back out again, telling them to run. A strange shadow and a bunch of wolves attack them. So now Caskell has been eaten right there in front of them, and Prentice has had his leg torn open. But they manage to bundle themselves into the truck and drive away. They have decided to go back to the bar where they first saw Nari. Nari's friends owned the bar and has promised them first aid for Prentice's leg. The wolves and shadows have followed them. Prentice has begun to doubt why Una was left behind by a family, why she seems off to him, why, when he saw her last, was she asleep and smiling in a smug kind of way. Was it because she was safe, or was it something else? The night in front of them as they set out for the bar is really unsettling, and I can only describe it as fast-paced folk horror that I just couldn't put down. I really love this book. We have the Russian forest spirit, the Pani, the malicious and evil little spirit who, according to legends, can actually kill people, and Christopher has painted this Pani as a horrific figure in this book, a shadow man figure with antlers. But that doesn't sound as bad as it really is. This Pani can lure people out of their homes with lullabies to entrance its victims, right out into the freezing forest, it would seem. Now, this book does come to a very satisfying conclusion. The characters are so well written, and as I said, it is very fast paced and will definitely be on my favourites list of folk horror books, taking the Russian folktales and making them very creepy. Christopher has a wonderful style that will make me want to pick up more books by him. So that's it. That's all of the books I read last week. How was your week? Did you get your month of June finished up nicely? Do you have a favourite book or film that you saw or read in June? I'm still thinking about what my favourite of the whole month will be while I get ready for my June roundup. Thank you for being here with me today and listening to me waffle on about books. I really appreciate you doing so. Don't forget to like if you did like it and subscribe if you want to stay for a little bit longer. I will leave you, as I always do, with my favourite quote from one of the books I read this week. I am frightened of nothing. Nothing? Nothing. Are you extremely frightened of nothing? Absolutely terrified of it. I have nothing in my pockets. Would you like to see it? No, I most definitely would not. Make some good book choices this week, my friends, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until next time, bye-bye.